Welcome back to another Crusty Cravings video. Today I wanted to give you a 6-month microbakery update and tell you all about how my first ever farmers market went and give you the do's and don'ts for someone wanting to get into a farmers market as a vendor. The beauty of the microbakery community is that we're all very welcoming and helpful with one another. I talk to a lot of microbakers on a daily basis and voice messages and just share ideas and thoughts. The tips and advice that I got from Florida microbakers is that the season really picks up in the fall and that markets are where it's at. So back in July, naturally, I started doing research to plan way far in advance. I was figuring out, do I need insurance? Do I need a special license? Are there wait lists for these different events? Can I do pop-up markets? Do I have to be a consistent vendor? What does it look like? And I started contacting a lot of these managers of the different events or the coordinators for these events and just seeing what my options were. All of the markets that I looked into, you have to have liability and product liability insurance. And so that was the first thing that I got. I also looked into what dates were going to work best for me and if I had to be a consistent vendor at some of these different markets. The one that I landed on, you can pick and choose, you pay in advance to secure your spot, and they don't allow more than 2 bread vendors at any given market. So it's ideal because you don't have that much competition and home bakers are able to be very successful with another baker at one of these events. So I picked 4 dates. I wanted to just do one market a month. My first date was September 7th. It's a Saturday market at Miramar Outlets from 9 to 1. And I was so nervous. I can't even tell you the last time I was that nervous. It's just a lot of pressure to make that much dough, to nail bulk fermentation, to bake everything and make sure everything turns out good, everything's packaged, everything's labeled, everything's in the car, everything's set up. Every little thing that you need for your market needs to be squared away, and that was the most nerve-wracking. So I'm really glad that I started prepping back in July and started buying all of the things that I needed. Based on my other videos and people who know me, you know I'm a researcher and a planner. So I started taking polls on my story on Instagram with other microbakers who are involved with markets and what their must-haves were and what their do's and don'ts were for their market. And I got some really great feedback and some awesome advice. So I created a master list of everything I needed for my market and started making my purchases way sooner than I needed to so that I wouldn't be stressed the day or the week of my market. I do want to walk you through everything that I purchased and everything that went into just doing my first market as far as my investment goes. The first thing was buying insurance, which was roughly around $35 a month. It covers me up to $2 million for product and personal liability, so I'm covered there in case there's any crazy people. And 2, we have a vendor fee for every single market. The market for the September 7th date was $40. I also had to purchase my own setup, so my 10 by 10 tent with weights. You're supposed to have tent weights about 20 pounds each on each leg so that your tent doesn't fly away and hit somebody at the market or another vendor and completely destroy your tent. That was $133, and that came with sandbags that I could fill with rock and sand. I also bought a large wooden chalkboard from Amazon for $47.91. I was told that having proper signage is a must and to have a front and center sign with your menu and all of your pricing so that people don't have to ask you what everything cost. So I thought that was definitely needed. I also bought mini chalkboards for my table to include all of the individual products that I had with their pricing. That was $14.99, and it also came with chalk pens. I also bought acrylic sign holders from Amazon that would house my health benefits of sourdough, my QR codes for alternative payment options, and bread care instructions. That was $18.99. I bought light pink spandex table covers for $21.59. It was a 2-pack. I also bought a cash box with a lock from Amazon for $22.99. I got signs for my market from Etsy, which was honestly a great deal for what I got. I worked with a professional designer that does vendor packages for markets, and it was 3 different signs. She worked with your custom colors, custom fonts, and logos, and did exactly what you wanted for $138. And it came with your table banner, your banner that goes in the front of your tent, and the banner that hangs behind you in the back of the tent. I highly recommend that. Everyone was commenting on my branding, how professional it was, that it stood out, that people like were coming because they saw the everything sourdough sign. So I do encourage you to invest in your marketing. It is going to pay off. I had to buy rock, sand, rope, and straps for the sign from Home Depot for $30.54. I also bought a tray for samples, a cake stand for samples from Home Goods, and those were $29.80. I bought a tray for cookies from Five Below for $22.20, a table and 2 chairs from Home Depot for $95, and a square reader that just plugs into your phone and you can easily take credit card. It is completely free to use the Square app. They just charge you a processing fee for credit cards, and the card reader was only $9, bringing it to a grand total of $644.94. Some of these things I'm only having to pay for once, which is really nice, but it is going to take you a little bit of time to possibly pay off your initial investment in your market setup. But having an eye-catching market setup is where it's at. That is what's going to bring you customers and gather interest from passersby who would have otherwise not stopped had it not been inviting or professional looking. I was told by other microbakers that go to markets and frequent markets that you should take about 10 to 15% of the expected headcount worth of loaves and another 5 to 10% of baked goods as fillers to sell. So what I was prepared to do was take around 40 loaves, about 20 full-size loaves and 24 mini loaves, as well as muffins, cinnamon rolls, and cookies. I had a lot of prep to do, so I started on Wednesday night. I prepped all of my cookie balls, and they were ready to go on Friday for bake day. I prepped them 2 days in advance to give myself a little bit of a cushion and time in between. I think that was the most helpful, is to prep my cookies so far in advance and have them fermenting in the fridge for that amount of time. It also brings out a better flavor, so it worked out. I prepped about 4 dozen brown butter chocolate chip cookies and about 2 dozen snickerdoodle cookies. I was planning on doing around 24 muffins when it came to the pumpkin muffins and the blueberry muffins, but I ended up only doing 12 of each. More on that later. And I was going to do around 8 cinnamon rolls just to test it. And that was like the perfect amount for this market. My dough day for the market was Thursday. I started my first batch of dough, which was my double chocolate espresso loaves, at 10 a.m. I knew that those were probably going to ferment the fastest and go in the fridge the fastest, so they would be my first ones that I baked on Friday. My next batch, I waited about an hour and a half. I wanted to give myself plenty of time in between so that both batches were not going to be ready to shape at exactly the same time. So this was going to be the most loaves that I've ever prepped in one proofing tub at a time. I was prepping 24 classic loaves in my giant proofing tub, and it was a lot of stress. I kind of underestimated how heavy the dough would be. I was pouring in about 30 pounds of flour, and I should have realized at that moment that I was making a very, very heavy box of dough. But I just went with it and started mixing in my starter and my water and was like, this is really heavy. And then even pinching in my salt, I was like, this is really hurting my hands. And then by the time I got to stretch and folds, I was like, what have I done? why did I put 24 loaves in the same tub? So never again. I'll probably do a max of 20 loaves in the same tub. But I did all of my stretch and folds, everything was fine. It just was so heavy. It was about 53 pounds of dough to do stretch and folds with, and I did 4 sets of a workout. So never again. Then after I prepped my classics, I did about 30 minutes in between my garlic and herb batch, and then 30 minutes between my garlic and herb and my jalapeno cheddar. So everything timed out really perfectly to where my chocolate loaves were done, shaped, and put in the fridge. And then immediately after, my big 24 tub was ready to be poured out and shaped. That felt like a race. It was intense. I was definitely very stressed. I was worried that they were going to overproof if I didn't hurry up. So I don't know if I would do 24 at the same time. Probably about 20 would be my capacity there. And I shaped all of those, put them in the fridge, and then immediately after, my garlic and herb was ready. And then right after that, my jalapeno cheddar was ready. The jalapeno cheddar went in the fridge by 7 p.m., and that wrapped dough day for me. I obviously baked my cookies the next morning. That was the first thing I did. And then I started baking all of my loaves. I did underestimate how much time it was going to take me. It took me around 18 hours to bake everything I was prepping for the market. And so I definitely would start much sooner next time. And a lot of the things like cookies and muffins are going to be great for a lot longer. So completely fine to start doing that early. I was baking until 3 a.m. on Saturday morning, and I had to be up at 7 to go to the market. So I don't recommend that. I think it does help to get more sleep before a market. And my kitchen was a disaster. There was packaging everywhere. I was stressed about printing all my labels. One thing I was good at is just putting everything in bins or trays so that it was easy to transfer everything to the car. And I pre-packed everything in the car the night before, everything that I could, not the food, but everything else was packed in the car, ready to go. So that all I did was wake up at 7, get ready, put all the food in the car, and then we were off to the races. It really only took me 30 minutes to set up for the market, which was great considering I had never set up everything. But I definitely would recommend doing a trial of your setup so that you know how everything goes and how everything is going to look the day of. So my favorite part, the do's and don'ts of a sourdough microbaker wanting to attend their first ever market. 1, bring lots of mini loaves. A lot of people did not want to commit to a full loaf, but they wanted to try a little bit of an inclusion loaf, or they just don't eat that much bread, but a mini loaf was the perfect size for them. Those sold in lightning speed, so I would almost double the amount of mini loaves I bring next time because those were definitely a popular seller. 2, samples, samples, samples. Samples 100% work. If you have someone who is skeptical of sourdough bread or sourdough baked goods, but they try a sample, it doesn't take much to get them sold. So that was the first thing I did when people walked by, was tell them, hey, I have free samples over here. Try anything you want. Let me know if you have any questions. I explained what everything was. I showed them the health benefits of sourdough, and we're just like, I'm here if you need me, ask me more. And that definitely worked. I know people were skeptical of the brown butter chocolate chip cookies, but once they tried them, they were sold. 3, cinnamon rolls. Cinnamon rolls flew off the shelves. I brought vegan and dairy-free cinnamon rolls because I can sell those under cottage food law, and people were obsessed. I had one lady that took one to her car, ate it, and then immediately came back and said, that was the best cinnamon roll I've ever had in my life. Do you have more? And she bought 2 more, and then the rest were gone within the first hour of the market. And I had people that were really disappointed that I didn't bring more. 4, have a market day packing list and pack the majority of everything you can in the car the night before so you are not stressed about forgetting something the morning of and packing last minute. 5, set up your tent and sign before attending your first market so you know how it works. We had to get zip ties for my signs to make them really straight and tight. Anything else like a bungee cord or rope was not working as well. So I'm really happy that I tried to set up my signs before the market without just assuming how it would look. 6, have clear signage and a comprehensive menu with all of your pricing so that nobody has to ask you what something costs and feel awkward. I still had people that asked me, but for those who are a little bit more awkward and shy and don't want to ask, they can just look at your menu and see all of the pricing. 7, get there an hour early to set up. You might not feel like you need that much time, but there are people that walk through early in the market, and you want to capture those customers while nobody else is prepared. 8, research and figure out what other bread vendors are going to be at the market and what their menus look like so that you're not just having a copy paste menu. You want to differentiate yourself and be a little bit unique, and you want to provide different options. 9, start buying everything you need months in advance or at least a month in advance so that you're not going to the store 500 times the week of your market when you already have so much else going on. I started buying everything on Amazon that I could, and then maybe like a week before the market, I was going into the stores locally that I needed to shop at. 10, set up your Square app and figure out how it works. Run a test credit card charge on it and make sure that you know how the software works. Set up your menu, get comfortable with it because it can be a little bit finicky. And it's just one thing you don't want to be doing the night before or the morning of your market. 11, bring a lot of $1 bills. Those definitely go first. And you want to fully stock your cash box with ones. 12, say hello to everyone who walks past. Ask them if they have any questions. Tell them you have free samples. Be personable, approachable, stand up, be engaging so that they stop by and say hi to you. They might not buy anything, but you never know who's going to be a good connection. 13, invest in your market setup and stand out. Good branding really does make a difference. I had a sign on the front of my tent that says everything sourdough, and people would walk by and audibly say, everything sourdough. I wonder what she has, and would walk over and see my samples, try something, and then most of them bought something from me. 14, make items that you can make in bulk for less time and less commitment and less hassle and manual labor. You want things that you can make a lot of to remain profitable. Bread is very time consuming. It doesn't have significant profit margins. And just for the amount of work that you put into it, it's not going to make you as much money as, say, cinnamon rolls or cookies or bagels, English muffins, you name it. It's just something that you can make in bulk for a little bit more profit. And lastly, if you have time, get to know the other vendors because they may have been in the market scene for a lot longer. They have a lot of connections and they can introduce you to the best markets in town and tell you what's going on. If you're new to the market scene, you need those connections and that networking. So for the don'ts, 1, don't be overzealous and underestimate how long it's going to take you to bake everything. I did add up how long it was going to take everything to be in the oven, but I didn't calculate the amount of time it takes in between to get things in the oven or for your oven to come back up to temp or go down in temperature. So don't be like me and be up till 3 a.m. the morning of your market baking. I didn't set up a sign with QR codes for alternate payment options, and a lot of people wanted to know if I accepted Zelle or Venmo or Cash App, and it would be nice to just have that set up on a sign for people to scan. 3, don't overcrowd your tables. I was thankful I had bins and shelves behind the tables to just take whatever was extra and restock something when it completely sold out. It just looked a little bit more clean that way, not to have everything on my table. Or figure out which way the sun is hitting and if you need shade panels. I was really thankful that I had a vendor next to me that had an extra shade panel and offered it to me because the sun would have been hitting my tent the entire day and really creating a lot of humidity and extra moisture in my bread bags. And I'm just so thankful that I had that shade, but I definitely need to buy one. 5, don't underestimate the power of genuine connections. I had someone overhearing me talk about the health benefits of sourdough, and they gave me a business card and asked me to come to their wellness event. So you just never know who's listening, who's walking by, or who can introduce you to someone. 6, don't forget that dough continues to proof in the refrigerator and continues to ferment, even if it is a very cold temperature, especially when you're opening and closing your refrigerator door all day and getting dough out, that it's going to create a little extra warmth. So your dough is going to continue to ferment. I took a full 18 hours to bake, and my last 2 loaves were slightly overproofed. Not enough for it to be completely ruined, but they were a little bit flatter and didn't have as much of an oven spring. So just remember that. 7, don't pack the car the morning of your market and have a checklist for everything that you need, like I said earlier. 8, don't rely on the market to do all of the marketing for you. Definitely use your social media, your friends, your family, and customers of yours to drive the word, because a lot of these markets don't have the budget for marketing and they're not doing paid ads or anything for it. So if you can do as much marketing as you can on your end, you're going to be more successful at the end of the day. And a third of my customers were people that I already knew. I did want to say that I thought I prepped way too many loaves and that I wasn't going to sell out, but I ended up only coming back from the market with one mini double chocolate espresso loaf and a couple packs of cookies and a few muffins. So I'm super thankful that I listened to the advice from everybody and packed a little bit more than enough just in case. And it paid off. As always, if you like this content, please like and subscribe and follow me on my other social channels on TikTok and Instagram at Crusty Cravings by Hannah. And if you have any questions, please let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time.